Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. I was watching Jello Impact's newest video, and in it he was talking about how one of the reasons the new upcoming 4.7 banners are disappointing is because Chevreuse isn't on them, even though Chlorant is coming out, and you know, Chevreuse might be a good team for her. And I agree, because Chevreuse, let's be honest, is arguably the strongest 4-star unit we have had since 1.0. And I thought I'd take this chance to talk about my favorite Chevreuse team in the game, the most consistent, the most fun, one of the strongest, just really the only team that you're ever gonna need using Chevreuse. And the team focuses, of course, how else would it be, on the one true king.
And his name is Gaming. Forever may he reign!
Okay, I'm actually just kidding. Sorry, I've been meaning to use this clip for a while.
But seriously,
we're just gonna use Dehya. Like I've said before, Dehya is one of my favorite characters in the game. Dehya and Raiden together actually are my two favorite characters, and it's the one reason why, when I heard that Chevreuse was coming out, immediately upon her first release, and this is the first and probably only time that I will ever do this, I immediately went C6 on her first banner, because Raiden and Dehya are my favorite characters in the game, and being able to use both of them in the same team, and it actually being an insanely good team as well, is honestly a dream come true, in Genshin Impact at least. As far as dreams go, that may be a pretty low standard, but it's a pretty good team is what I'm trying to say. Now, of course, whenever you use Chevreuse with an Electro DPS, like let's say Raiden or Yae Miko or possibly Chlorant in the future, other than Chevy herself, there are a number of other Pyro characters that always come up in discussions when we talk about Chevy teams. One of which being, of course, Bennett, and Xiangling being the other one. Now, the reason I don't like Bennett here is because, I mean, he is an insanely good unit, obviously, sadly, but his one big downside is, of course, his whole circle impact dilemma, and if there's ever a team where you don't want to be confined to this little circle here, it's gonna be an Overlord team, because you're gonna knock enemies out of this circle so damn quickly. Plus, honestly, if you're talking about attack buffers, I actually prefer Kujazara a lot more than Bennett in this team, because while it's true that her attack buff only lasts 5 seconds, if you run her with Xiangling, Xiangling actually snapshots her buff, so Zara's biggest downside is not even an issue, because it's gonna have 100% uptime on Xiangling's Pyronado, and you have pretty good uptime on Raiden's Burst as well, because it has a pretty short DPS window. Now let's go back to Fischl here in this slot, and let's talk about Xiangling, the other popular Pyro option. Xiangling is of course your premier option when it comes to DPS, because the amount of off-field DPS Xiangling can do is actually just straight up broken. But I still prefer Dehya over her for a number of reasons, because she just makes the team a whole lot more consistent and more fun in my opinion as well. If you build Xiangling right, it does insane amounts of damage, even off screen, and she definitely does more damage than Dehya, but if you build your Dehya right, the damage isn't actually that much more on Xiangling. Yes, it's more, but at least during Dehya's burst uptime, if you build her for burst damage, she at least does more damage in that window than Xiangling, and then she doesn't do insignificant damage with her E either. While Xiangling is a better damage option, it's not like Dehya does no damage in comparison. Plus, if we're talking about survivability, she is just an insanely good unit, which is what makes this team right here maybe my favorite team in the whole game. So we're at the Abyss here, and I'm gonna show you 2 Abyss runs, because I think it's an absolute joke. It's an absolute cakewalk. I've made a whole video centered around Dehya, and I'm not gonna go into full detail again, but people don't understand Dehya. Some people say she's supposed to do damage, some people say she's supposed to be a pyro applicator, some people say she's a defensive unit. It's all wrong, to be honest. It's either wrong or right, because the truth is that she's all of the above. She's a hybrid unit, she's a role consolidation unit, just like Kokomi, or like John Jin, for example, in Wuthering Waves. What makes her so good is that while she only reduces damage, incoming damage, by 50%, the amount of total damage she can reduce is 200% of her max HP. If you build your Zhongli, he has a shield that can absorb, let's say, maybe 15,000 damage. And during that time, while the shield is up, you take no damage at all, except for maybe corrosion or something, right? But against some enemies, like let's say, for example, Coppelia or Coppelius, who are on this Abyss cycle again, the shield of Zhongli, a shield with 15k HP, can quite easily break if you're not careful. Whereas the amount of damage Dehya can actually absorb is 200% of her max HP, which in the case of my Dehya would be 70,000 damage. There is no enemy in the game that is gonna deal 70,000 damage to you in one rotation. Which is why against Coppelia, and I'm gonna show you this, I'm able to, with this team, go through my rotation. At no point am I ever worried about my health. At no point am I ever being knocked back. At no point do I ever need to adjust my rotation. At no point is my rotation ever delayed for any reason. I'm just going through the motions, having fun, enjoying life, and playing my favorite team, you know?
I say it's time we focus on what really matters.
Now I'm gonna show you some Abyss footage right now. The point of the showcase, and I want to make this point very clear, Raiden and Dehya are my two favorite units, which means they are quite heavily invested in. They aren't super relatable anymore. But the point of the showcase, honestly, is not to show you how quickly I can beat the floors. The point of the showcase is to show you how comfortably I can beat the floors, okay? Now you're gonna see that I beat floor 12-1 in, I believe, 24 seconds and 12-2 in 38 or something seconds, right? So that's quite fast. It's not the fastest you can clear it, but it is pretty damn fast. I have a C3 Dehya and I have a C3 Raiden because these are my two favorite characters in the game. And I do have the R1 signature weapon, respectively, right? But even if you don't have that, even if you have a really good fitting 4-star weapon like the Akuamaru on Dehya, and maybe only C0 or C1 on Raiden and Dehya, right? Let's say you need twice as much time. Let's say instead of 24 seconds you need 48 seconds. Let's say instead of 38 you need what, 76 seconds? You're still gonna have plenty of time to clear the floor. At least if you have a pretty good second team as well. And you're still gonna clear just as comfortably. So I'm gonna show you the Abyss footage and then I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about why this team is so awesome. Okay, so this is me doing 12-1. And as you can see, what we do is we'll set up Dehya's damage reduction. We'll go into Raiden's E, we'll go through the rest of the rotation, set up I can't even talk, it's that fast. We're going into Dehya's burst. You can see it does a good amount of damage at C3. And then we just go to Raiden. Okay? And actually, you know what? I want to pause this. I want to go back and I'm going to play this in like, what, 50% or so again. So here we are again, okay? And again, it's not about how quickly I can beat this, it's about how comfortably I can beat it. I set up the E, at no point do I need to dodge, Raiden just takes that damage, right? I go to Chevreuse. Chevreuse stays on the field for quite a bit. Fischl is using her burst. Then we go to Dehya, right? Dehya takes a bit of damage, but she has plenty of HP, it's no problem. Plus we have the heal on Chevreuse as well. We go into Raiden. Now Raiden has interruption resistance in her burst anyway, so she doesn't need that from Dehya's E, but the damage reduction is still nice. She doesn't take a lot of damage here, even as she's just getting hit blatantly. At no point do I ever dodge, which is the point. It's super comfortable. And here we are doing 12-2, okay? Now Coppelia is a boss where if you're not careful, you can eat a lot of damage. I hear people talking about how they have to be careful doing Coppelia, how with certain teams they might not have enough healing. I mean, look at this. Like, I'm just punching, destroying the shield first of all with Dehya, setting up her E again. Raiden doesn't take a lot of damage because Dehya's E is there. Like, at no point do I ever dodge, am I ever knocked back, am I ever worried about anything. And mind you, these are the first attempts on each fight. At no point was I ever resetting. It's piss easy, is what I'm trying to say. And even if you don't have C3 R1 Dehya and C3 R1 Raiden, So what, maybe it's gonna take you twice as long, you're still gonna beat just in time, you know? And it's still gonna be just as comfortable. Now let's talk about the centerpiece of this team, Chevreuse, right? Ideally you wanna have her at 40k HP. I'm just shy of that, which is fine. I could get more, but honestly I'm running Deathmatch because it suits her well. It's a great fit. And to get a more satisfying crit ratio. And the ER is plenty if you're using Raiden in this team. So yeah, that's my Chevreuse build. I'm of course running the Noblesse set. Some people run the new-ish healing set. Noblesse is really good here as well. Has a 12 seconds uptime whenever you use her burst, which means that depending on how you play this team, it's gonna cover the entire damage rotation of Dehya and Raiden. The way I play it and the way I think it is best to do the rotation, it doesn't quite cover both of their rotations, but most of it. Plus, of course, it's there for Fischl's Oz as well. My Fischl, honestly, I mean, of course she's C6, but her artifacts aren't super great. There are plenty of Fischls out there that are better. So it's not like Fischl is hard carrying this team or anything. The reason why my Fischl is not amazing is because she has like third priority on my Golden Troop sets. Because Furina runs Golden Troop and Navia runs Golden Troop and they have higher priority. And don't get me started on why I'm still running Golden Troop on Navia. I'd just rather not talk about it. But anyway, another reason Fischl is really great in this team is because her burst has a really low cooldown at 15 seconds. And at 15 seconds, what it allows you to do is to just pretty much always use her burst, which will always feed into Raiden's burst. Raiden is great, of course, because she feeds everyone's energy and because she is one of few characters who can actually buff Dehya's burst damage. And something that's really crucial is that with Dehya's 50% damage reduction, what you have is that Chevreuse healing is essentially doubled. Her net healing value is essentially doubled because Dehya reduces all the incoming damage by 50%. So let's switch on Chevreuse right now. Let's do a hold E, switch to Dehya. Her healing ticks for 2.7k, which is not a lot necessarily. And then she has another tick that's AoE at the end for everyone for like 3.6 or something, which we don't get to see here because everyone's at full HP. But the point is, Chevreuse does not heal a lot. Even if you have her at C6, it's not a lot of healing, which is why in some teams, in some Chevreuse teams, and against some enemies, that healing might not be enough. But if you run Dehya, all the incoming damage is reduced by half, which essentially turns the 2.7 ticks into 5.4 ticks, and the 3.6 AoE tick at the end into 7.2 ticks. Which means that Chevreuse, as the sole healer in this team, is more than sufficient. Plus we have Dehya with the damage reduction and the interruption resistance. Raiden doesn't need it, of course, because she has interruption resistance during her burst anyway. But you use this during your setup phase as well, which means that even in this time, it is kind of like you have Zhongli's shield, but it's even better because it never breaks, because it doesn't just absorb 15k HP, it absorbs 70k HP, plus it doesn't absorb all the damage, but it absorbs enough damage that Chevreuse can counter heal it anyway. It is such a comfortable team, guys. So of course I'm running the emblem set on Dehya because in my opinion that's the most fun, right? I want to see the biggest burst numbers that I can see on Dehya. At the end of the day, fun is what it's all about for me, you know? Chances are pretty good that Dehya will never be the best pick for any speedrunning team in any environment. But when we're talking about comfort, right? Doing the thing, not being worried, not needing to reset, still doing plenty of damage, more than enough damage. This is such a good team with such good synergy. In terms of damage, this is maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10 if we compare it to what the damage ceiling of a current Chevreuse team can be. But strength is not just DPS. That's maybe the most important factor, especially if you are in timed content like the Spiral Abyss. But it's also survivability. In my opinion, it's also comfort, because I don't want to play teams that aren't comfortable. And so overall, I would say that this is one of the strongest teams in the game. At least as far as Chevreuse teams go, because it does really good damage, it is really comfortable, and it's really fun to play because you have two sick burst animations and it has my 2 favorite characters, and I'm biased. If you haven't built your Dehya yet, I still maintain that she is a highly underrated character. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think Dehya is necessarily a great character, especially not at C0, because I really think her C1 should be part of a base kit. She goes from an okay character at C0 to a good character at C1 in my opinion. But some people are out there saying she's unplayable, which I'm just shaking my head at these comments, honestly.
Peter, you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
But yeah, check out my Dehya video if you're interested, and if you're not, then maybe wait for my next video in another 3 months or so. But yeah, play this team: Dehya, Raiden, Chevreuse, and Fischl, the only Chevreuse team you'll ever need. Have a good one.